This is the second video in our series, Fair Fighting. Welcome back. I hope you took a short break after the first video to discuss what you're learning. And I also hope you take some time to do the suggested exercises. Well, we're going to jump right into rule number 3, and that is, when it comes to conflict, more energy should be invested in personal ownership than blame. I mean, the reasons that people end up in conflict are numerous. We've already mentioned that a problem can be mine, yours, ours, or it can be like an outside thing. It can also be a combination of one or more of those things. So starting with blame rather than ownership is a waste of time. I mean, as a marriage counselor, my belief is that most conflict in marriage is not about the actual issue, but it's about the way the issue was approached and the damage that was done in trying to resolve it. Well, I can tell you personal ownership is a great place to start if it's an issue between the two of you, and it's not always. You can't go wrong by looking for your part in the conflict first before trying to point out your partner's role. This is very important. If the conflict is between you and your spouse, you both have something to own, guaranteed. Find out that information first, then look for ways to help each other, not blame each other. By the way, if you're in a relationship with someone and they're always right and you're always wrong, go back to rule number 2, where each of you understand your unique relationship with conflict. Okay, rule number 4. Assume everything you disagree with could be true sometimes. Usually assumptions are a bad idea, and they can get you into a lot of trouble, can't they? And usually the assumption in conflict is, I'm right and you're wrong. So instead, try the assumption that when you disagree with someone, there could be some truth you cannot yet see. In most cases, we find what we're looking for. So if you're looking for truth in places you least expect to find it, the chances are high you will. This is one of those assumptions that could potentially serve you very well. So assume everything you disagree with could be true sometimes. If you're looking for possible truth in an area of disagreement, you will likely discover some of the most important truths in your life. Rule number 5. Be aware of all the current areas of conflict in your life and then name them. In an intimate relationship, it is very easy to assign blame to your spouse when you are experiencing other types of conflict. I mean, human beings are complicated. There's so many sources of conflict in our lives. Home, parents, friends, children, job, world-related issues. I saw so many couples during 2020 that were allowing the pressures of COVID-19 to affect their marital relationship, and they did not realize that's where it was coming from. So it's a good idea to be aware of where all the conflict is coming from in your life, and then take the time to label it. I'm struggling with my relationship with my boss at work. My parents and I are not getting along right now. The kids are wearing me out. I'm having a confidence problem. The house is a wreck. It's creating conflict for me. I don't know what to do. Someone at work is bullying me, and I don't know what to do about it. Listen, my dad's death is still affecting me. All of these examples are sources of conflict, but if I'm not aware of them and if I don't label them, I am more inclined to take out my frustrations on the people closest to me. So be aware by taking the time to figure out where all the conflict in your life is coming from, and then label those issues, you are more aware of your conflict. Rule number 6. Just because you seek professional help for conflict does not guarantee that you're going to get sufficient help. Not all counselors have the same levels of training and experience. If you're seeking help for conflict, you need a counselor trained in communication and conflict resolution skills. It's helpful if they have a marriage and family systems training, experience, and background. It's also helpful if they are actually married and have children and are personally aware, not academically aware, but personally aware of the complexities of marriage and family life. So if you decide to get professional help, make sure the professional has both the training and the personal experience required to help resolve issues involving conflict. All right, let's look at one more rule in this video, and then we'll again take a break and then we'll move on to the last one. Rule number 7. Make conflict a tool of understanding rather than a weapon of choice. Conflict is about two people tackling a problem together, but it often devolves into a dispute where two people are actually working against each other. I mean, there should be very few disputes in a couple's regular work week. If you're having a lot of conflict that leads to disputes, you probably need some professional conflict resolution assistance. The conflict is about achieving understanding, not victory. And by the way, there should be degrees of conflict in a relationship. I mean, here's some examples in order of intensity. Preferential differences, strong opinions, conflict, disputes, intense arguments, and then agreeing to disagree. Actually, the most intense form of conflict is agreeing to disagree. Sometimes couples do need to move through an issue by acknowledging that there's not going to be resolution, at least not right now, and that's okay. Now, if all conflict leads to this level of intensity, then you may have some significant values differences, and you would have to work that through with a professional, in my opinion. If your values differences are significant enough, the relationship cannot sustain this long term. Nonetheless, make sure conflict is more about understanding than winning. Okay, let's take a break. And let me encourage you and your spouse to do this exercise. Have a quick conversation with your spouse and talk about whether or not levels of conflict may require outside support. Discuss why you think this or why you don't think this. Come to some agreement as to whether or not you think this is a good move for you right now. All right, so we'll wrap this one up, and the last video we'll take a look at those last 3 final rules.